This is Keith. I work on the Levridge grain commodity team as a business analyst, product designer. I just wanted to go over a couple of the use cases that the Levridge scale application supports. And we handle inbound grain, outbound grain, transfers, and agronomy, specific agronomy and hydrous scenarios. The two that we're going to talk about and look at today are inbound grain, outbound grain, and a little bit on the transfers. So I wanted to go over a little bit what the scenarios we might be looking at on the inbound grain. The first step we'd be looking at is a truck arrives at the probe station and the ticket is started with the customer and commodity, and a grain sample is taken for quality tests. So this is the scenario that Jake will show you today. We do have a separate probe station in the configuration, but know that we don't need to have it separate. We can take the sample right on the scale or at the unload pit if we'd like. So after the probe station, the quality information can be keyed in, or most likely we have it integrated to one of the grain analyzers, whether it's a Dickey John moisture tester, Steinlight, or Foss, or any of the other grain testing. So that grade quality information will be integrated into the scale ticket. The truck then, after it's been probed, will move on to the scale and is weighed for the first time. So we have integration to the scale head so that you can just capture the scale weight, or you can key it in if you have to through a manual weight. But typically, the scale indicator will be read and the weight will be populated to the scale ticket. Then the driver is directed to whichever pit or bin to unload. So in this scenario, they're not unloading at the scale, but they're going off to unload at a pit somewhere. The truck is unloaded, and then it will return to the scale. And then we will, at the scale head, the scale operator will select the ticket from the list of in-the-yard trucks, so that are the trucks that have been weighed in but haven't been weighed out. And we grab the empty weight of the truck and save that to the scale ticket. We then print the scale ticket and give it to the driver. So that is the inbound grain scale scenario. We also handle outbound, which, as you would guess, is very similar. The difference is that the empty truck is empty when it starts, so it is weighed before it's loaded with the grain. The outbound scale ticket then is created with the weight of the truck as it's empty. The truck is filled with grain and returns to the scale full, and we again select that truck from in the yard because it's been weighed in but it hasn't been weighed out yet, and the ticket is updated with the weight, the full weight or the heavy weight as it leaves the yard. Optionally, we can take a sample and run that sample through the grading equipment, so we can have our outbound grades if we choose to record that information, or if in your operation that is a step you'd like to take. And then we print and hand the ticket to the driver. So real simple scenario. Truck is empty, gets filled, gets weighed. We can take the grade information in and print the scale ticket. All right, so with that, enough with PowerPoint. Jake is going to give us a quick look at the software. So Jake, I will make you the presenter here and take it away.
All right, thanks, Keith. I'll go ahead and get my screen shared here. All right, so this is what you see is what we call the start screen of the Levridge scale. So when you first launch it, you'll have an option here to choose your scale. So you could have multiple hooked up. So we'll go ahead and choose the Rice Lake scale head. Once I did that, our default printers defaulted in here. So we have options for ticket and receipt type, so full page and laser printers for both the scale ticket and the bill of lading. These are set up in our configuration, but you could choose a different printer here in the list as well. Next, I'll choose my starting ticket type. So we'll start with an inbound grain ticket, and then I'll choose myself as a scale operator and click Start. This takes us now to the inbound grain scale ticket page. So the first thing, the truck will come in, we'll capture the customer account. So we'll pick Keith here as our truck driver. And then next we would pick the commodity. So he's coming in with some corn. Once I chose corn, we see on the right side our grades, grade factors and grades defaulted in here from what we have set up in our Dynamics 365 enterprise accounting system. So first thing we'll do is, this will be the probe station, so we'll go ahead and capture some grade factors here. So we'll put in some moisture, test weight, foreign material, and some damage. And then we can save this ticket. Optionally, at any time, we can also enter in some information such as the driver and the vehicle. So now we've captured our grades. We're going to send the truck off to the scale to take the inbound weight. So we'll save this ticket. Now we see it's down here and the truck's in the yard. So once it gets to the first scale, we'll click edit on that. It brings our ticket back up, and now we can capture our inbound weight. Right now our Rice Lake is simulating a weight of 39,000, so I will manually enter in an inbound weight here. And you'll see that it gets recorded as a manual weight once I do that. So now that we've got this weight captured, we can click save again. Now the truck's going to go unload. Once it's done, we'll bring it back from the yard again by clicking edit. And now we can capture our weight out. So I will capture that. And you'll see that calculates the net weight as well as the gross quantity in bushels as set up by our unit conversion for corn. Once that's done, we'll print the ticket. And then we'll be left on a new screen to start our next inbound grain scale ticket here. For that ticket, I've got an image here of what it looks like. So this is an example of one of our inbound grain scale tickets. You'll see we have the customer details, weights, grades, as well as other information. And then for outbound grain and transfers, it'll be a similar style, just updated with whatever fields are necessary for that ticket type. So next, we'll go ahead and start a outbound grain scale ticket. So it'll be a very similar process here. We'll start by choosing our customer account and our commodity. We'll stick with corn today. And then you can see grade factors. We can optionally enter that as well, or we can just capture our weigh in. So this will be the empty weight of the truck. So we'll go ahead and capture that. Enter in whatever information we want, also optionally, as well as notes. The notes here, the internal notes will only show up in the scale here, as well as in our Dynamics 365 F&O. The external notes will do the same, but also be printed on the printed scale ticket. So once we've got our inbound weight, I'll go ahead and save this. Pull it up from the yard again, once we've got it loaded up, and then weigh our weigh out weight. Once this is done, again, optionally, we can enter in some grade factor values. Enter in whatever information we want, such as axles, license plate, and click print. And that'll print out the scale ticket, send that ticket to our enterprise accounting system. And as Keith mentioned, we can briefly touch on transfer tickets as well. So on the left side here, I'll click on the transfer ticket type. That'll bring us to the transfer ticket screen. We'll start with the transfer out. So this scale is in Barnesville. So let's say we'll choose a destination site of Alexandria. And pick our commodity. Capture our weights here. Again, capture our grade factors optionally, as well as enter vehicle container information. All these fields are optional, except for the ones marked with the red asterisk. So now we've captured our weights, we would click transfer and print. That would print this ticket, send it to our the scale ticket to the printer, and then send it to our enterprise accounting system. And then if you wanted to do a inbound transfer, so a truck shows up that's being transferred from a different location, you'll scroll down on the transfer ticket page and you'll see our inbound transfer grid. So these are tickets that have already been printed as a transfer origin at a different site. So we'll go ahead and select that. This is coming in from Alexandria. Once we do that, it'll populate all the information that the scale operator at Alexandria chose, excluding the weights. So now we can capture our own weights, put it in there, and then print it as a transfer destination scale ticket. Next, we can touch on some of the scale settings here. You'll notice that when I was choosing customers, we do have the shortlist for customer account, but we've got another search bar here. So if there's a customer that's not in our shortlist, we can still search them. So let's say Newell. Now we have our updated customer list with whatever customer we searched. So when we set that up, we go into our configuration settings, our customer shortlist, and here we have all of our customers synced from Dynamics 365, and whichever ones we have checked will show up in our shortlist. So if we want to add Chezron Farms to our shortlist, we can mark the box, click submit, and the next time that we create a scale ticket, let's stick with inbound here. Now we'll see that Chezron Farms shows up in our list. And the other thing I mentioned earlier was our default printers. We can look at that as well. So we'll go to our printer settings. Here we'll choose the default printers for scale that we want. So whenever I choose Rice Lake, these are the printers, the printer type, and the number of copies that we'll print, as well as the background color that showed up in the top left of the screen. So for example, we have a Rice Lake 920, as well as a second scale. So we can set up different printers for this other scale. And then a different color as well. We'll make this one yellow. So now we see that when we go back home and choose the second scale here, our other printer's default. And then when we click start, we have yellow up here, as well as the name of the scale up here. So you could have two different tabs open in your browser, one for each scale, and you'd be able to tell them apart by the color and the name. Keith, anything else you'd like me to add? Otherwise, I can send it back over to you.
No, that looks really good, Jake. Thank you. A couple of things I wanted to talk about was the technology, and Jake just showed you, and there's my dog. It's fun to work at home, isn't it? It is browser-based, web-based. So as you saw, the scale weights, we're actually connecting to a scale that's remote in Barnesville. So it just shows some of the capability of the technology that the scale operator doesn't really have to be where the scale head is. So again, it's browser-based. We use a MySQL or a SQL database at the PC at the scale. And it can be integrated to our Levridge grain accounting package, and with that you get a lot of cool functionality because you get customers come over and commodities and other setup, all kinds of setup information comes automatically from the back office Levridge grain accounting to the scale, or it can stand alone if you want to use it with a different grain accounting software. I think that does it for technology. Jake, if you could bring in the inbound ticket, there's a couple fields there I just wanted to touch base on to show some of the capabilities of the system. You can see here that on the upper left corner there's a delivery sheet, a customer operation, and a customer site. So a delivery sheet is if you issued a delivery number to a grower and they come up to the scale and have that number, we can punch that in there or select that if it's coming from our back office, and then a lot of the information will come in automatically if you're using that type of configuration. So that's what the delivery sheet is. The customer operation and customer site, is the ability then to track that scale ticket right down to it's basically farm and field. It could be more generic, it's more generic than that if you want it to be, but basically it's what farm, what field, if you want to track that information on the inbound scale ticket to track right where that grain came from. And also the split group, if they happen to tell you when they come across the scale, if they happen to tell you how they want this ticket split, if it is split, you can choose that at that time and capture that information here, or you can capture it later in the Levridge grain accounting system if they haven't told you, if the truck driver didn't know. So just some of those fields that help provide more details about the scale ticket.